Shalom Alaikum, Mishpacha. Most definitely, YaHaWaH for giving me the opportunity to welcome you back to YaHaWaH, the truth, the spirit, the waters, and the blood. Most definitely, just taking a little bit of time out to share some content with everyone on fair use. Um, yes, fair use on educational purposes. Don't own the copyrights to none of the videos. Just here to give commentary to and a little bit of clarity and understanding. Today I'm gonna want to just spit a little bit of information about how the Father's word actually traveled through what is known as the first Passover. What actually occurred? Did the Passover really occur? Um, and just a little bit of insight on it. So therefore, let's get to the material at hand. This particular video that I'm about to share, or documentary that I'm about to share, is pertaining to how the Father really attacked. He went at certain nation or Egypt. He went at Egypt, and how he moved and how, this is what we're supposed to teach and talk about, and remembrance what the Passover is all about. So with this, I'm gonna go ahead and give, I guess, what the first testimony of what actually happened, which is, going to be contained to this content right here.
Onto Egyptian gods, I think you'll like this presentation. If you have never heard about how the Egyptian plagues correspond to Egyptian gods, I think you'll like this presentation. It will probably stimulate your mind more than your heart, seeing God doing some apologetics in the book of Exodus. Sometimes we miss out on some of the genius points of the Bible when we know too little about the environment of the writer and of the original readers. God's frontier is that all the Egyptian gods, which had been worshipped for centuries, were so inferior and powerless against the Almighty God of Moses. Before we dive into today's material, I would like to give you a short historical overview of Egypt. At about 10,000 BC, we see the people lived along the Nile. The river Nile was life-giving as it is still today. Most of Egypt is desert. About 5500 BC, we have what is called the pre-dynastic period, where the archaeological evidence becomes more abundant. We see evidence of small settlements, organized agriculture, even larger building constructions. They were actually using mortar at this time. At 3000 BC, the first dynasties emerge. Egypt is a unified state and has a king, a pharaoh. They develop a quite advanced writing system. 2500 BC, the Great Pyramids were built, quite near Cairo, the modern capital of Egypt. At 2000 BC, Abraham visited Egypt, maybe also saw the pyramids, I guess he would. They were antiques, they were famous, as was the Sphinx. After about 400 years of slavery, Moses was raised in Egypt. He learned all the tips and tricks at Pharaoh's court. Egypt was a world power at this time, quite advanced.
Okay, now when we talk about this particular period, right in between 2000 BC, 1500 BC, Moses was raised. Now, if Moses is raised during this particular time, now he's coming about the age that we can all agree that he's going to go to the Pharaoh and say, let my people go. So the document that was written during that particular time is called the Imperial Papyrus, which is a document that was written as an eyewitness to the account of the Exodus, Imperial Papyrus. So with that being said, the Imperial Papyrus was written, have to be 1500 BC and a little bit further. Just keep that in mind.
its culture, medicine, even brain surgery. Later, 1000 BC, King David's son, he married Pharaoh's daughter, so there was an alliance there. At 600 BC, the Assyrians, then the Babylonians, then the Persians took over Egypt for about 300 years. In 2 Kings 23, we read that Pharaoh Necho killed one of the kings of Judah. All the way through the Old Testament, there's a connection to Egypt. Egypt is actually mentioned in 30 of the Old Testament books. Then in 300 BC, Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, and there were Greek pharaohs for about 300 years until 30 BC when the Romans took over Egypt. So after a long time with Greek pharaohs, ending with Cleopatra, there was Roman administration over Egypt at the time when Jesus visited Egypt. There are lots of hard facts that have been dug up. Many of the amazing things produced even 5,000 years ago have survived. This can really help both our knowledge about ancient Egypt, but also to illuminate the biblical times. The same goes for other stuff in the field of biblical archaeology. Back to Exodus, that's the Greek word for departure. It's time to exit Egypt. It started with the descendants of Abraham crying out to God, and he listened, as God always does. Pharaoh was asked to let the Jews go, but he didn't want to do that. The result of his stubbornness was 10 plagues. Now, why? Well, both to answer Pharaoh's taunts, he said, "Who is this God?" and also to impress the Jews and the surrounding nations for many centuries to come, as we can read in the Old Testament. Pharaoh could have stopped all of it, but he hardened his heart and he chose not to. Anyway, God triumphed over Pharaoh, over the Egyptian gods. Every plague was a direct insult to the gods of Egypt. And finally, they were all allowed to leave. And this has been celebrated yearly with rituals in the Jewish community. In Exodus 12:12, God is saying, "Against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgments. I am Yahweh."
I am YaHaWaH. Follow YaHaWaH.
So that is why he chose those 10 plagues, as we will see in a few minutes. God said he would perform wonders. Sometimes we call them plagues. God did several wonders, including the burning bush that didn't burn down, Moses' staff turning into a snake, and so on. But here we'll focus on the 10 plagues starting in Exodus 7. They have been grouped into 3 sets of 3 plagues, plus the final one. As the first in each group, that is now plague number 1, 4, and 7, they came with a warning, but the last in each group, that is number 3, 6, and 9, they came without a warning. Now let's look into how the 10 plagues correspond to Egyptian gods, as Yahweh wanted to execute judgment against them. We start off with wonder number 1. Water from the Nile turned into blood. Horrible thing. Here we see Hapi, who was the god of the Nile. This was a slap in the face for him. He couldn't protect the water, and the water was the heartbeat of Egypt. Essential, both for drinking and for trade, commerce, and for crops. Also, other gods were challenged by this miracle. Osiris, the Nile was called Osiris' bloodstream. Now it turned into actual blood. Wonder number 2. Frogs came out of the river. Here we see Heket. She's always depicted with a frog's head or a frog on top of her head. Frogs were also animals you should never trample on or kill. because there were hard punishments for doing that in Egypt of those days. Now, frogs were not so popular anymore. Frogs were everywhere and they were dead. So that was plague number 2. Number 3, lice, especially dreadful for the priests. Lice are the dust of the earth. The priests shaved not only their beards, but also eyebrows, not to become unclean by lice. No, there were lice everywhere. And Geb was challenged and beaten by God in this wonder number 3. Wonder number 4, swarms of lice. They did not bother the Jews who lived in Goshen. God protected them. But Kepher was a god of the beetles and flies. He couldn't protect the Egyptians. Also, Amra were challenged by God on this one. Wonder number 5, death of cattle and of livestock. The herds of the Jews were not affected either. And after these 5 horrible plagues, Pharaoh tried to persuade Moses to stop it. But Pharaoh didn't want to let the Jews go. So they had wonder number 6, boils and sores. There were lots of Egyptian gods helping with medicine, with healing, magic, and so on, like Isis and Imhotep. But none of them could help the Egyptians against this plague. Wonder number 7, hail came from the sky. There are few gods who were protecting the sky, holding the sky up, and so on. Nut, who was the goddess of the sky, she was also mother of 5 other gods, but none of them could protect Pharaoh or his people. Wonder number 8, then the locust came. We have seen that several times also in modern history. Grasshoppers come and eat all the crops. Seth, the Egyptian god of crops, was powerless against God's hand. Wonder number 9, complete darkness. The major sun god called Ra stood helpless. Surely many prayed to him, but they had no sunlight for several days. Other sun gods also, one who raised the sun in the morning, one god of the sun rays, and so on. Obviously, none of them helped the Egyptians. Wonder number 10, and the final plague and motivation for Pharaoh to give in. Death of the firstborn. The firstborn was important in many ways, as he had a double inheritance, he had a birthright. He was also the future for your family, for your business, or whatever. So it was an awful blow against the Egyptians and against Pharaoh. Pharaoh used to be deified after death, but at this time, almost, he was a god even while he was living. Even Pharaoh had his firstborn die. There were also a few other gods, like Hathor and Isis, who were defeated by God YaHaWaH. To sum up the short presentation about the gods of Egypt and how they were defeated when the God of Moses performed these 10 wonders. First, we see the people crying.
Okay. Now, after we see that, we most definitely see how the plagues of Egypt, or how the plagues affected Egypt, and especially in the deities, the disrespect towards the deities that was, supposedly able to help them during particular times, heal them in the particular times and such. So now I'm going to a particular imperial papyrus. That's what I mentioned earlier. This is what I mentioned earlier. Does the imperial papyrus provide evidence for the events of the Exodus? The imperial papyrus, a tablet Well, I'm gonna tell you about it. The Imperial Papyrus, also known as the Admonitions of Imperial. It is a controversial text that describes starvation, drought, death, and violent uphills, violent uphills, uphill, uphills in ancient Egypt, with some maintaining that it is an it is an eyewitness account of the Exodus plagues. Neither the beginning nor the end of this work was preserved, leaving historians with difficulty in interpreting the material and researching a final conclusion about the events it describes. So, just saying that they, because of his condition, um, it's certain parts of it that they couldn't read and couldn't fully interpret, but it does interpret a lot. But the violent uphill in ancient Egypt. Now we're gonna go here. The 10 plagues, live from Egypt. And this is particularly written by a rabbi in this particular source, and it's just a EDU site. Basically, this one says in the early 19th century, a papyrus dating from the end of the Middle Kingdom was found in Egypt. It was taken to the Leiden Museum in Holland and interpreted by A.H. Gardner in 1903. The complete papyrus can be found in a book at an admiration or ad, admonish, admonitions, Slathia, admonitions of an Egyptian from a historian papyrus. All right, the complete papyrus can be found in a book, Admonitions of an Egyptian from a heretic papyrus. In Lieden, the papyrus describes violent uphills in Egypt, starvation, drought, escape of slaves. Well, yeah, escapes of slaves with the wealth of the Egyptians, taking, the slaves taking the wealth of Egypt with them, and death throughout the land. The papyrus was written by an Egyptian named Epir, or Epir, um, and appears to be an eyewitness account of the effects of the Exodus plagues from the perspective of an average Egyptian. Below excerpts from the papyrus together with their parallels in the book of Exodus, meaning the book of Exodus, the Torah. For a lengthier discussion of the papyrus and the historical background of the Exodus, see Jewish Actions or Action, Spring 1995, article by that particular author. All right. So on the left, we see the Imperial Papyrus, Lied 344. And it goes by different chapters and verses. The Torah, Exodus, of course, Exodus 7. I don't know if this is from the KJV. I could check real quick, but I don't feel like it. But you could compare the notes later. But the Torah tells us all the waters of the river were turned to blood. The Imperial Papyrus, the papyrus, we'll just call it the papyrus, says in chapter 2, verse 5 through 6, plague is throughout the land, blood is everywhere, and all the waters of the river were turned to blood. The papyrus also says the river is blood. The papyrus says the river is blood. Exodus 7:21, there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt, and the river stank. The papyrus, men shriek from tasting. Okay, well, that leaves. All right. Men shrink from tasting human beings and thirst after water. Exodus. And all the Egyptians dug around the river for water to drink, for they could not drink of the water of the river. The papyrus, chapter 3, verses 10 through 13. That is our water. That is our happiness. What shall we do in respect thereof? All is ruin, no water to drink at all. Here we come from Exodus. Exodus 9, 23 through 24. And it reads, and the fire rained along the ground, and the fire rained along the ground. There was hail, and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous. From the papyrus, forsooth, gates, columns, and walls are consumed by fire. The papyrus also says, Lord, Egypt weeps, the entire place is without its revenue, without its money, without its revenue. To it belong, to it belong by night, wheat and barley, geese and fish, gone. From Exodus 9:25, and the hail smote every herb of the field and broke every tree of the field. Exodus also goes to say, and the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in season, and flax was ripe. Over at the papyrus, Lord, Egypt weeps. The entire place is without its revenue. It done lost all its barley and its wheat, geese and fish. The papyrus also goes to say right here, grain has perished on every side. Grain to this is from an eyewitness account of a written individual that's there seeing it. Fish, grain is gone, everything is without its revenue. And then over there in Exodus, we go to say what, or it goes to, and it reads, but the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up yet, meaning that they weren't in season. Then the Exodus go to read to say, for remain no green things in the trees on or in the herbs of the field through all the land of Egypt. Then the papyrus goes to say, and sooth, that is perished which was yesterday seen. Yesterday it was there, but it's gone now. The land is left over to its weariness, like the cutting of the flax. Exodus. Exodus 9, verse 3. The hand of YaHaWaH is upon thy cattle, which is in the field, and there shall be a very grievous sickness. And the papyrus says, all animals, their hearts weep, cattle mourn. It also goes to say in the papyrus, behold, cattle are left astray, and there is none to gather them. Over in Exodus chapter 9, verse 19. Gather thy cattle, and all that thou hast in the field. And it goes on to read 9:21. verse 9, chapter 9, verse 21. And he that did not fear Yah or the word of YaHaWaH left his servant and the cattle in the field. The papyrus goes on to mention in chapter 9, verse 11, the land is without light. In Exodus 10:22, another plague that hit, there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt. There was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt. Then it goes on to say, and it came to pass, that at midnight YaHaWaH smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. YaHaWaH smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of the Pharaoh that sat on the throne to the firstborn of the captive that was in the prison. Now, here we go. And it came to pass that midnight. This is Passover, y'all. This is Passover. When the spirit of the Father moved through, and it came to pass, Exodus 12, verse 29, chapter 12, verse 29, and it came to pass that at midnight, YaHaWaH smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on the throne to the firstborn of the captive that was in the prison. The papyrus is the second witness of this. Forsooth, the children of princesses are dashed against the walls. So when he smote them, he dashed them against the walls. Forsooth, the children of princess are cast out in the streets. He threw them out in the streets, for prisons is ruined. He killed every firstborn. And the thing that gets me is that he killed all the firstborn, and physically, they say, an eyewitness said, forsooth, the children of princesses are dashed against the walls. They're thrown against the walls. As it came to pass that at midnight YaHaWaH smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. Forsooth, from the eyewitness says that the children of princesses are dashed against the walls. Forsooth, the children of princesses are cast out in the streets. They were thrown out in the streets. Then it goes on to say, in the papyrus, he who places his brother in the ground is everywhere. He who places his brother in the ground is everywhere. And what is it described in Exodus 12:30? And it reads, there was not a house where there was not one dead. There was not a house of the Egyptians that there was not one dead. That there was a great cry in the land of Egypt. Now let's go over to the papyrus, chapter 3, verse 14. And that one reads, it is groaning throughout the land. Hold on. All right, y'all. I wanted to make sure he whose place his brother is ground is everywhere. It is groaning throughout the land of mingled with lamentations. Lamentations is groaning and crying and mourning. It's like what the God, imagine that. Something just came through and it threw your children, your princesses, your firstborn male, your firstborn against the wall, smote the firstborn in the land of Egypt. And it says the firstborn. It's not even saying firstborn male. It said I will smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. So you go through the land of Egypt, then you witness all of your firstborn. So from this particular document, that's eyewitness, the Imperial papyrus, from this particular papyrus, and I won't drag it on, but I'm just like, yeah, it was tragedy that was happening, and it just got crazy, right? Fourth suit from the papyrus, the children of princesses are dashed against the walls. Fourth suit, the children of princes are cast out in the street. The prison is ruined. He who he who places his brother in the ground is everywhere. It is groaning throughout the land, mingled with lamentation. What if there was a great cry in Egypt? This the father said, remember this, you teach this to your children. And here you go, another eyewitness that says, just in case for you don't believe, at least he believed in order to write an official document on it. And in this Imperial papyrus, look it up. Behold, the fire has mounted up on high. Its burning goes forth against the enemies of the land. Now, in Exodus, by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, to go by day and night. Also, and the Imperial papyrus is written this. This is what the first eyewitness has seen, and seeing the power and the glory of the Father. And in Exodus 12, verse 35 through 36, and they requested from the Egyptians silver and gold, articles and clothing, and YaHaWaH made the Egyptians favor them, and they granted their request. They gave them whatever they asked for. The Israelites thus drained the Egyptians of its wealth, just giving it to them. You just experienced something traumatic, like you, like a poltergeist went through. And it came to pass that at midnight, Yahweh smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. Then you witness some people get dashed against walls. You witness people get the firstborn getting thrown, cut down in the street, shaken down, slammed up, whatever. This is the first Passover, right? The prisoners, every first from the prisons everywhere in Egypt. He said, I'm gonna smoke the firstborn. And why am I calling this the Passover? Because earlier that day, Moses was told to go to the children of Israel and make the Passover meal, prep for the Passover. And at that night, this is what occurred. And from in that city of Egypt, they witnessed firsthand what happened at midnight. And most definitely when all of this when it all occurred, it had to mortify Pharaoh or Pepe or the second or whatever Pharaoh that was in charge at the time, because he was so and they all of them crying and all of the lamentation that was going on in the land of Egypt. It was the lamentation, and as they say what happened, and also the yeah what they said happened, and from what the word read all the way through it, the Pharaoh at that time had to be mortified. He was waking in the middle of the night and jumping up like, what's going on? Everybody in Egypt jumping up like, what's going on? Nobody sleep. And then you come to find out all of your people who have been, your firstborn, just like said, have been torn down spiritually or physically. So now everybody is torn down physically. What did he tell them? He told them, Moses, nah, call Aaron and y'all get them Israelites and y'all go. Y'all leave up out of here. And then gave the father gave a particular the all of the bloodline, the genealogy of everybody of Israel. Don't you hold out one. You let all 12 tribes go. So therefore the Pharaoh was just shook by that. What would you have done? And this is coming from an eyewitness called the Imperial Papyrus, the 10 plagues live from Egypt. and written by a rabbi, or this particular article is written by a rabbi, but the actual imperial papyrus, Lyden 344, is actually Egyptian documents that some try to say that it doesn't describe. I believe in the word, solid. The word said that all of that was supposed to happen and all of that happened, right? So basically, I just looked inside it. I was sitting back and thinking about it. And then I started really, really thinking about it. And I said, man, the Passover, is Philadelphia, an important event. And with this important event, I think I remember something else about somebody else talking about our Passover as well. And then it dawned on me, it was the Imperial, I thought it was the Emerald Tablet of Thoth, but it wasn't Thoth. It was this one, the Imperial Papyrus. You check out all of those other um cultural, the particular deities that they worship, they mention our father. Our father is Atik most ancient of days. There's nothing that could compare to him. He is. And he just showed Pharaoh firsthand and what could created our first Passover to the power and the divinity and what could actually happen. This is a first-hand witness of this particular occasion. I'm just like, I find it interesting that in another society, it could have been written a totally different way, but it was written just like that during the time of the Exodus occurring. Check it out. Hope you agree, or not agree. If you have any questions, or if you could like point out anything that I may need to address, then most definitely, yeah. Please put it in the comment section. If you stuck around this long, take the time out. I love you for it. Most definitely, YaHaWaH, I thank you. And basically, I appreciate you to take the time out to hit the like, share, subscribe, the bell notification for new content, and always recommend the channel for any and everybody that may need, or may find it entertaining and educational at the same time. With that, I'd like to say YaHaWaH for giving me the opportunity to present this presentation, and I wish nothing but love for you all. Stay blessed, stay peaced up, and stay prayed up.